devours them.
A ride of last resort.
We covered almost half of Mexico.
Through narco territory.
No one is safe here.
Turn it off, yeah.
We were kidnapped and put inside a chicken coop.
A life and death gamble.
This area we're going to is very dangerous. Those are the sounds of an execution.
In our search for survivors of the world's most dangerous migrant route.
It's an iron monster. We could fill a town with the victims of the train. A huge cemetery.
I'm Avery Haines, riding on top of a train through Mexico. A train with some ominous names. La Bestia, El Tren de la Muerte, the Beast, the Train of Death. They're just ordinary freight trains. But for desperate migrants, they are a life and death gamble. A free ride north through Mexico, the final and most treacherous obstacle between them and their American dream.
It's known as the Beast because of its speed. As they are running for it, they can't hold on to the train and it devours them. And they lose either an arm, a leg, or their life.
Prickly bushes are the least of the dangers facing 7-year-old Sarah and her family. They're trying to avoid Mexican immigration patrols as they wait for the beast. All of a sudden, the group has just heard that migration is coming. So they've come up this large hill, which is a garbage hill, to try to hide. This little girl right here was telling me, get down, get down. She knows this so well. Avoid migration. Everyone flattens to the ground, thinking the white truck on the tracks is immigration. But it's just a railway maintenance truck, a false alarm. Your youngest daughter already knows that she has to hide from immigration.
Yes, we were in a small town and had to run from immigration, and she was scared, so frightened. And so I told her that we are playing a game of hide and seek.
Jasmine's son, meanwhile, winces in pain. He's hurt his ankle, a potentially critical injury when your next step could be onto a moving train.
I've heard many people fall and lose their legs. It's very scary, but it's the risk you have to take for a better future.
Jasmine and her family are from rural Colombia, where rebel fighters have a long history of brutality and forcing children to join their ranks. She tells me they seized her farm at gunpoint, and when they came for her 13-year-old son, the family fled.
They kept telling us they would go for my son. It's hard to live like that in fear.
So now they wait, enveloped in the stench of the dump, with a different kind of fear hanging over them. In the distance, a faint rumble that's getting louder. The sound draws Jasmine and the others down to the tracks. And this is what they're waiting for. The death train. They're all going to be scrambling to get on. The train apparently doesn't stop, it just slows down. Gripping her daughter's hand, Jasmine and her family make a run for it. As the end of the train passes, they realize that they waited in the wrong spot. It's not stopping, it's not stopping, they shout in disbelief as the beast shrinks into the distance. They're starting to run again because they think that the train is stopping up ahead and that they might have another chance at catching it. But it's too far away. The little girl's legs just aren't fast enough. They'll have to wait it out for another train.
What does a train do?
This journey is so hard. We don't recommend it for children.
In fact, it's getting increasingly difficult for migrants to ride the rails north, and it's because Mexico is trying to stop this. Shocking scenes of thousands of migrants clinging to the beast, heading towards the U.S. border. Now, random checkpoints like this have popped up along some tracks. This crackdown is part of a deal between Mexico and the U.S., an effort to stop migrants from even getting to the border. So these soldiers with the Mexican military have teamed up with immigration, and they've set up a checkpoint right along the tracks where the death train comes barreling through. If they get word that there are migrants on board the train, they stop it here and haul them off. Haul them off and take them back to the southern border with Guatemala. It's like snakes and ladders. Each move forward comes with a risk of being forced back. Further up the tracks, we find some migrants who have managed to get on a train.
Hola, muchachos. ¿Qué tal?
It's come to a brief stop, and so we quickly clamber up before it starts moving. At the top, a small group from Venezuela, Honduras, Nicaragua, and Colombia. The train lurches forward. This tank car is relatively safe because there are railings to hold onto. The train tears through vast farmland and small towns. The train's slowing down a bit, and this is actually when it becomes the most dangerous because people will come and try to jump on, unaware that even though it's slow, it's still super dangerous to get on. They get sucked under the tracks. There are all kinds of reports of people being mutilated and dying on this train. Wilma's from Venezuela. She tries to soothe her son, Aiden. They're exhausted. Her cousin Edwin, wearing a mask to keep warm, counts off the hours they've been on this train.
Más de 17, 18, algo así. Wow. Y es muy, muy duro, ¿no?
Sí. Ya anoche nos llovió. Y no teníamos con qué cubrirnos, sino con unas bolsas que teníamos puestas.
She's telling me that last night it rained. They've been on this train for the last 17, 18 hours. They had nothing to put over themselves. She's traveling with her 10-year-old son. The train stops here. They'll have to find another one that's heading further north. They toss down their few belongings and gingerly get off. Their clothes stained from almost 24 hours atop the beast. Close to the tracks, there's a migrant shelter called the Friends of the Train. Inside, they can clean up and regroup. Outside, a place to sleep and a hot meal. But most importantly, here, they're protected from immigration raids.
Buen provecho. Por favor.
Standing in line for food, some familiar faces, the children we met days ago at the dump. We find their mom, Jasmine, packing up her things. She's panicked about what to do now. Her husband went for a walk away from the shelter early this morning, and the unthinkable has happened. He was scooped up by immigration. She doesn't know where he is.
He's my partner, and now I'm alone with my children, and I don't know where to go or what to do.
It's just the latest stroke of bad luck. This is the train they managed to get on at about 2 in the morning after we left them at the dump. Then they hopped on this train, the family sitting precariously between 2 cars. And when it stopped 6 hours later, a devastating realization. It was going the wrong direction, away from the U.S. border.
We got off and walked for an eternity, and then waited for a whole day for another train.
And now, with her husband gone, there's yet another setback.
There's immigration, the National Guard.
This shelter worker is warning them there's a new checkpoint on the tracks just ahead. No one should board the beast.
It's very dangerous, and there are narcos, so if it's not immigration, it's organized crime. You have to be very careful.
Listening in, the family we were just with on the death train, they've endured so much to get this far. Their journey first involved surviving this. One of the most physically challenging migrant crossings on Earth, the Darien Gap, a wild jungle that connects Colombia to Panama. It's a jungle we know too well. Over 6 days, we trekked through deep waters, over massive boulders, and scaled steep rocks for the W5 documentary, Narco Jungle. We followed the plight of 3 families from Venezuela as they forged through the Darien, a perilous journey that hundreds of thousands of migrants make every year in their search for a better life.
We are professionals, and look at us here.
I'm a pianist and she's a singer.
Music teachers, imagine that.
Ernesto navigated the unforgiving terrain with his daughter in a baby carrier. His wife, Liz, despite exhaustion, always found energy to sing. Their teenage twins tried to help with their brother, Jose, who lugged his guitar on his little back up steep mountains, across cliffs, and through rivers. We also met Yumara.
Ocho. Oh. 8 meses.
Filled with energy and excitement at the beginning of the journey, when we crossed paths days later, she was broken. Her husband had an asthma attack and died on the grueling trek.
You've lost so much.
Oso perdió todo. Por lo menos pues sí, sé que me estoy arriesgando bastante con los niños, venir sola con ellos y la barriga. Pero espero encontrar, no sé, futuro, algo, una estabilidad para mis hijos.
The Darien Gap grinds down the strong and can devour the vulnerable. These women were just robbed and sexually assaulted by armed Panamanian gangs.
The prettier ones they took to a side. We heard the screams.
So when we found 2 lost girls, crying and all alone in a clearing, we had to act quickly.
Pero tengo demasiado miedo, no puedo estar sin mi abuela.
Okay, I'm making a decision. They're coming with us.
At the end of the Darien Gap in Panama, the 2 girls, cousins, were taken away to a safe house for lost children, with no idea if they'd ever see their family again. For the others, some relief. Like Jose's guitar, they were battered, but still in one piece.
Levanto mis manos, aunque tenga mil problemas.
In this moment, they all believed that the worst was behind them. They couldn't have been more wrong. The real nightmare was about to begin.
Ciao.
6 months after we said goodbye to the families we met in the Darien Gap, a wild stretch of jungle that connects Colombia and Panama, the new president of Panama, Jose Raul Molino, announced a bold move, to shut the jungle down.
I won't allow Panama to be an open path for thousands of people who enter our country illegally, supported by an international organization related to drug trafficking and human trafficking.
He's talking specifically about Colombia's most feared and most powerful cartel, the Gulf Clan.
Trying to balance 2 tripods on a log that's crossing a swamp.
In W5's previous documentary, Narco Jungle, we landed a rare interview with a cartel leader who admitted to their lucrative human smuggling business through the Darien Gap.
Everything that moves has to pay a tax. It's a business that is helping us. They help us, and we help them reach their American dream.
Now, Panama has put up barbed wire along 5 of the 6 known routes through the jungle. And they're also deporting some who make it out of the Darien, and the U.S. is paying for it, $6 million a year. 7 plane loads so far. Shackled migrants have been sent back to Colombia, Ecuador, and most recently, India. It appears to be a deterrent. In the first 2 months following the new rules, about 37,000 migrants crossed the Darien Gap, 100,000 fewer than the same 2-month period in 2023. But there's a major flaw in Panama's plan. The entrance to the Darien Gap is in Colombia, and the cartel won't easily give up its lucrative business. Human smugglers are even advertising on social media. Don't believe the jungle is closed, he says. It's a lie. That's false.
I think the phenomenon of migration is not going to stop. Even if they put a lot of pressure, the need is quite great.
Humanitarian workers like Anahi Selam warn the cartel will just use more dangerous routes over water to circumvent the jungle.
They're going to just go around it and come by sea. It will be more terrible. I think there will be many more deaths.
Most of the families we met in the Darien Gap say the jungle was nothing compared to the horrors they faced on the rest of their journey north. It's one of the reasons Yumara, who was 8 months pregnant and whose husband died on the journey, only made it as far as San Jose, Costa Rica. This is where she now lives, under a garage. In a life filled with so much hardship and loss, there is this blessing: a bright light in a grim setting. One bed for all 4, no windows, and a portable stove, the same one Yumara used in the jungle. Photos of her husband are a constant reminder of what this has cost.
I think about him all the time. He never met his little girl. His greatest wish was for a baby.
Yumara is filled with guilt.
I was very careful with his inhalers, and he didn't tell me that he ran out. He was already dying and gasping. I didn't have a way to get him to hospital. It's my fault because he said many times, "Let's not continue." But I insisted. We have to do it for the future of our children. And now I am alone with the children.
Each night, 29-year-old Yumara toils away on her sewing machine, making roses out of scraps of cloth. In the day, with her kids at the corner of a busy street,
Buenos días, disculpen los apellidos que no compro una rosita. Okay, gracias.
She tries to sell them, weaving in and out of traffic. Despite the ever-present smile, Yumara says some drivers have been cruel.
They say to me, "You're a bad mother for bringing my children to the street." but they don't know what I've been through.
Gracias.
They are slowly building a life in Costa Rica and feel safe. Isabella is enrolled at school. Yumara has heard horror stories of migrants being preyed upon by narcos as they make their way through Mexico, and so for her, the American dream is dead.
A family who I was friends with here have been missing for a month now. We don't know what happened to them. And so I don't want to go. I'm scared. I'm alone with 3 children. I'm grateful to be here. I don't have luxuries, but I have 3 meals a day. My children have a roof over their heads, a bed, and we're establishing a life.
Most migrants who cross the jungle travel right through Costa Rica, all the way up Central America, shuttled by bus from border to border for a small fee. The nightmare begins when they cross into narco-controlled Mexico. Migrants aren't allowed on public buses in Mexico, so the family we followed in the Darien Gap, Liz and Ernesto, got creative.
Aquí mi gente, un tractor.
Hitching unconventional rides.
Family.
But mostly they walked, Ernesto documenting along the way.
Pasando todo, diría yo que
We covered almost half of Mexico on foot.
For weeks in the baking heat, they joined this massive caravan of migrants, believing there was safety in numbers. Little Shalom in that same baby carrier from the jungle. You'll notice Jose doesn't have his guitar. It was unloaded months ago. One less thing to carry.
Yo prefiero pasar la selva.
I would rather go through the jungle 20 times than what we experienced in Mexico.
Cuidado con los cárteles.
You have to watch out for the cartels. Watch out for immigration.
Here they were stopped by immigration and ordered to turn around and go back to the border with Guatemala. The exhausted family collapsed in a gas station parking lot, a moment that haunts Liz.
I think that was the hardest part for me and my family because I saw that they were suffering. I'm sorry. Every memory that I have is hard. When my children were very tired, I saw them lying like dogs on the street.
This is how they've been earning money as they slowly make their way north. With her little karaoke machine, Liz belts out songs, her youngest children at her side. She doesn't even skip a beat when they need her attention. The odd person tosses in a coin, but most walk on by. Their 17-year-old sons are working too. Hard labor, low wages, but every peso counts.
Hice poquito. 60, 70, 80, 90, 100.
¿Cuánto hiciste?
Hice 309.
309.
309. Algo, aunque sea para el pasaje.
Sí, porque
309 pesos, about $22.50 for a family of 6, including teenagers. This is where they live, on the outskirts of Mexico City. A one-room apartment.
Leo, ¿qué haces en la cama con los pantalones sucios?
eso.
Liz and Ernesto are stuck in the notoriously dangerous Mexico because of tough new border rules that took effect in June of 2024. It used to be that anyone who stepped foot on U.S. soil, even if they did so illegally, could claim asylum, causing surges like this. Now those caught are being detained and deported. U.S. Customs and Border Protection figures show illegal border crossings have dropped by more than 50% since the new rules took effect. Now, the only way to claim asylum is by booking an appointment through this app. Fewer than 1,500 appointments are available each day, so migrants are trying their luck daily to win what is essentially an online lottery. On average, the app is being accessed a staggering 5 million times a month.
Have there been moments where you have thought, I've made a terrible decision to put my children through this unbelievable journey?
No.
Never?
No. Pero yo veo el futuro.
I see the future, because I could die, but my children will have a future there.
No me arrepiento de haber, aunque hemos pasado.
I don't have regrets. Even though we have been through a lot of tough things, we've done it together.
Está abierto.
While the family tries to get an appointment, we embark on a journey that spans the length of the Mexico-U.S. border, trying to track down the young girls we rescued in the Darien Gap. The infamous wall, a giant metal serpent that cleaves Mexico from the United States. The border stretches some 3,000 kilometers. The red line shows where there are fences or walls, and the white where there's no barrier at all. It begins here in Tijuana, separating Mexico from California. It doesn't start on land, but in the sea. Each post creates dangerous riptides, so anyone who dares swim gets sucked out to sea. Tijuana is as far west as you can get in Mexico. We need to make our way to the very eastern edge, to a city called Reynosa. That's where we've tracked down Frenzabel and Kendra, the lost girls we rescued in the Darien Gap. Our first challenge is getting through Mexico's Sonora region. This is not the area of Mexico that you'd come to on a family vacation. It's one of the most dangerous regions, and that's because it's a major drug smuggling and migrant smuggling route. A lot of cartels want to have a piece of that action. We're on our way to visit a priest, and we've been told that if we run into any difficulty to mention his name, and that should protect us. We're pulling up to the town where the priest is now, Altar, Mexico. Our first sign of the Narco war, this checkpoint.
Hola.
Hola.
Buenas tardes.
Hola.
Open your windows. Thank you.
The military keeps an eye on everyone who enters and who leaves. This is Father Prisciliano Perazza, getting his robes on for Sunday service. He's a man with both faith and grit, who says the cartels prey on migrants.
Te roban, te secuestran.
They rob you, they kidnap you, they rape you, they extort you.
Se vive un ambiente.
There is a lot of violence, a lot of tension. We are at war.
It doesn't look like a war zone, but there are signs everywhere that migrants are big business. Check out the stores by the town square. Everything here is catered to those planning to sneak into Arizona through the desert.
Se migra.
People immigrate out of necessity, out of fear, not out of pleasure.
Si la migración la hubiéramos atendido.
If we address the issues in the countries where people are migrating from, no one would want to leave.
¿Quién va a dejar su casa?
Who would want to leave their home, their town, their family? No one.
With the Father's blessing, we're back in the car heading east. We pull over to get shots of the wall and stumble across evidence of illegal crossings. This discarded map of the death train routes is the first clue. But within minutes, I collect a treasure trove of passports and identity cards. It's like the United Nations of identification here. People from all over the world, from Dominica, Nepal, Mauritania,
and India. The list goes on.
But it just doesn't make sense. How could anyone get over this mammoth wall? An Arizona Border Patrol agent pulls up and has answers.
When the cartels say, you have to move, you have to move. They waiting, usually it's a ship chain, so they cut the bottoms.
That's right, the human smugglers cut through metal, concrete, and rebar in minutes. Here's the evidence of where it's been successful and where it's been interrupted. And then the border agent tells me to walk down along the wall a little further. Listen closely to what he says. Right now, the gate is open. This massive effort to keep migrants out, and the gate is just open. It turns out it is. For 2 months a year during monsoon season, the doors are flung open to stop the roads from being washed out by a buildup of rain.
People know this and come here to cross illegally. So your patrol is probably trying to see.
The border agent leaves, and as we're getting shots of the wide open gates, visitors, a white SUV pulls up.
Hola, soy Avery.
Field producer Maria Teresa Scotti and I tell them we're journalists, and they take off.
Gracias.
Soon after, another vehicle with more guys.
Hola. Todo está bien.
They want to know what we're doing here, and they're not friendly. The guy in the red shirt keeps spitting. You could hear the chatter from the walkie-talkies on their hips, telltale signs they're with a cartel.
No.
They're asking about the camera and tell us to turn it off.
It's off, no?
Turn it off, yeah.
Our cameraman, Jerry Vino, quietly turns the camera back on and points it toward the wall.
Just go. He's part of the cartel.
Yeah.
So I would like to know why.
They control this stretch of the wall.
So he explained that nobody can stay here without...
En esta área.
This area is your area.
Yes, exactly.
Are they angry that we're here?
No.
No.
They are just saying that we don't have to stay here a lot of time.
Okay.
Jerry swings his camera around as they peel away. They're called Falcons. They're the lookouts for the cartels. And almost every time we stop along the border, they appear. It happened again as we headed further east on our way to find Frenzabel and Kendra. This is on a little road across from El Paso, Texas, in Ciudad Juarez.
Yep. It's kind of spooky here because it seems as though we're all alone, but we're not. Cars like this, as well as people walking by, are actually Falcons. They're the spies who are checking out what we're doing.
We decide to leave.
Do we need to move?
We have another one in the back, in front.
We've had now 3 cars come up. One at the front, one at the back, and one just down there.
The wall is heavily fortified. Armed patrols are a constant sight, but still people manage to get across by using human smugglers. We're on our way to meet one.
These people that they just gave the go are alcoholists.
The driver is our middleman with connections to the cartel. He doesn't want to be identified.
You said this area we're going to is very dangerous.
¿Sí escucharon?
Sí, what was that?
¿Qué fue?
Un balazo. Viejo, ¿sí se puede dar vuelta, va?
He's trying to find out what's going on from the car beside us.
Oh, again.
¿Sí escuchan?
Pop, pop.
Son balazos.
Gunshot.
He puts his seatbelt on for the gunshots.
Sí, se escuchan todos los días así, pero son ejecuciones.
Our friend here knows how to interpret the gunfire in this city. The 2 pop-pops that we heard, he said if it was a gunfight between cartels, it would have been a lot more. And so he believes that those were the sounds of an execution. seem really nervous coming into this area.
We are entering in a risky situation, for sure.
We have to turn the camera off until we get to a cluttered, walled-in backyard to interview a man who makes a living smuggling desperate humans across the border. He checks to make sure he can't be identified. He tells me to call him Damien.
I work smuggling undocumented people into the United States to get them to their destination. We call them chickens.
It's like a depraved zoo. Cartel spies are falcons, smugglers coyotes, and migrants are chickens.
Sometimes we use ladders, long ladders, or others made of rope.
How much does it cost for someone to hire you?
$8,000, $10,000.
What do they get for that money?
A fee is charged for everything. I take you where you want to go, to whatever city you want to go to. It is my mission to fulfill you.
Reynosa, Mexico is just across the border from McAllen, Texas. We're driving to see Frenzabel and her cousin Kendra for the first time since we rescued them in the Darien Gap.
Pero tengo demasiado miedo, no puedo estar sin mi abuela.
¿Cuántos años tiene?
Yo tengo 12.
12 y ti?
13.
13. Aquí es peligroso para ustedes. ¿Tiene comida? ¿Tiene agua?
No.
Okay, I'm making a decision. They're coming with us.
The girls stayed with us until we got out of the jungle. They were then taken to a safe house. No one knew if they would ever see their family again. Now, 6 months later, and thousands of kilometers from the Darien Gap, an emotional reunion. For the first time, I meet the grandmother Frenzabel was crying for in the jungle.
Gracias. Gracias por estar ahí en esos momentos que ellas estaban tan solas. Gracias.
Bien, muchas gracias por todo.
This is Frenzabel's aunt, Kendra's mother.
Hola, Evelyn.
Hola, ¿cómo está? ¿Todo bien?
Frenzabel and Kendra each have little brothers who also cross the deadly jungle.
Hola, futuro.
The family together. It was never a guarantee when the girls were whisked away to wait with other lost children of the Darien Gap. Frenzabel was warned if no one came for them, they'd be put up for adoption. For days, they waited.
Many people were saying that my grandmother had fallen into the river and was dead. I kept thinking, no, that can't be true. Every night I prayed to God that my grandmother was alive, and those bad stories weren't true. I felt like the world was falling apart.
The jungle is filled with grim reminders that injuries can mean death. And so when Frenzabel's grandma fell and injured her leg, her aunt made the heart-wrenching decision to send the girls ahead with a stranger who promised to get help, but didn't.
I gave my 2 treasures to somebody that I didn't know. The guy told us that within 2 hours he would get help. And those 2 hours turned into 4 days. 4 days.
With these 2 little boys, they hobbled through the jungle and on the 5th day made it out.
5 days without seeing them. I was desperate. The man from immigration said to me, "What are their names?" Wait a minute. And he showed me a photo. For me, that day was, oh my God, they are alive. I took a deep breath and cried and hugged them and said, thank you, God, they are alive.
When I reunited with my grandmother, it was the happiest moment. Once I found her, I said, I will never separate from my grandmother again.
At times, they seem like just regular kids, but they've lived through too much. There are people who traveled the Darien Gap like you did, and they say that Mexico is more dangerous than the jungle.
Yes, it's more dangerous because we were kidnapped and put inside a chicken coop. They were all armed, and they said if we moved, they would hurt us.
The whole family was kidnapped by narcos shortly after crossing into Mexico. Frenzabel's aunt and grandma say the cages were filled with migrants who didn't have the money to buy their way to freedom.
The guy from the cartel was asking for $70 from each of us.
We realized we had been kidnapped, totally kidnapped.
And the girls were crying, men with weapons, bad people, with their faces covered. They were looking at the girls. My God, now what do I do now?
What she did is paid them, and they were freed.
Muy bien, ¿y tú?
13-year-old Frenzabel is on the phone with someone she hasn't seen in person in 3 years. Her mother.
¿Cómo te sientes? Ojalá todo salga bien.
Her mom is in Washington, D.C., having crossed the Darien Gap herself a couple of years ago, and now desperately waiting for her daughter and the rest of her family to join her.
Ya estamos juntas.
This phone call is extra special. Frenzabel, for once, has good news to break.
Se sentía bien emocionante. Ya no falta nada. Ya estamos ya en la final, ya.
They've just found out that they have essentially won the migrant lottery. Their online application to cross into the U.S. to apply for asylum has been approved.
Es emocionante. Yo creo que mi abuela hoy no va a poder dormir nada más. Bendición, mami. Te quiero mucho. Yo también te amo, mamá.
The quiet of the early morning is shattered by shrieks from the bathroom.
How are you? Yo estoy bien. Yo estoy bien. Yo siempre estoy bien. Very good.
3 generations practicing English with Frenzabel's mother on a video call.
¿Cómo se siente? ¿Cómo se prepara para pasar?
Bueno, emocionada. No sé lo que me viene, no sé. Estoy como la selva, no sé lo que me viene.
Dressed in their finest, this is the day they risked their lives for. An impromptu prayer as they prepare to take the final steps in their arduous journey.
Dije y oré por este día, Señor.
Gracias, mi Dios. Gracias, Señor. Amén, amén y amén. Preparado, pues. Preparadas. Ah, no apagaron el aire. Buenos días, señor.
The end of their dramatic voyage is almost anticlimactic as they walk in single file into their American dream.
Muy grande la emoción.
The emotion is so overwhelming.
Wow, llegué.
Wow, I made it.
Tienes que echarle
I have to
ganas
keep pushing
porque si quiero
because I really want to be someone in life and make my mom proud.
mi mamá. Es muy lindo.
It's very beautiful to know
Ya vienen mejores.
that better things are coming from everything we've gone through.
I'm stopped from following any further. But you can just make out Kendra's little duckling hairband bobbing in the distance.
On the other side of the country, in Tijuana,
I'm nervous. I can't help but think about all we've been through and, well, doing it this way is glorious.
just a few more steps for Liz and her family. They too landed one of the coveted appointments that allow them to walk into the U.S. to apply for asylum.
¿Cuántos países? Como 8.
Colombia, Panamá, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Honduras, Guatemala, México, 7 y 8.
Ay, estoy muy emocionada.
I'm very excited.
Lo logramos, llegamos.
We did it.
No somos los últimos ni los primeros.
We are not the last nor the first.
Hay personas saliendo de
At this very moment, there are people leaving their homes.
Tal vez hay personas ahorita.
There are people right now who are dying in the jungle,
Con esa esperanza.
all with the dream of arriving to the United States.
Yo voy a llegar a Estados Unidos.